And welcome to this video which covers the practice effect and the learning curve theory as part of sports psychology. This is relevant for the Stage 1 psychology course and should hopefully help with test and exam revision. Let's get started. So, in the lead up to the 2000 Sydney Olympics, each sport utilised the services of a sports psychologist. So this was one of the reasons why Australia was so successful. So the Australian Institute of Sport, Australian Football League and other major sporting associations will employ sports psychologists and recognise the value of their services. So this relates back to what I was saying in my previous video on Introduction to Sports Psychology. So it's more than just a loud chant before the start of a game. It's a frame of mind that carries over into effective training practices, great teamwork and all stages of the game, including practice. So because obviously professional athletes spend so much of their time practicing, there needs to be a lot of emphasis on the psychology of practice and ways to utilize practice to achieve optimal results. So let's get into this in more detail. So the benefits of practice are very complex. So it's likely that you've heard the term or the phrase, practice makes perfect, many times and notice the positive effects of it. So practicing can improve performance and also help when performing in front of an audience by boosting your confidence and therefore reducing anxiety. And we know how important that is with the Yerkes-Dodson law that I've talked about previously. So practice can be a great team building exercise. So practicing with your teammates or other athletes of the same sport can really boost confidence. It can build team cohesion and really lead to positive outcomes, especially when you can see all the hard work paying off. So you're able to compare your performance or your practice compared to a month ago or 2 months ago. Obviously, you'll see a gradual increase in your performance, in your accuracy, in your speed, obviously whatever is relevant. So this is a very good quote. If I miss 1 day of practice, I notice it. If I miss 2 days, the critics notice it. If I miss 3 days, the audience notices it. So obviously practice is extremely important for professional athletes, professional musicians, and anyone that requires practice to master a skill. There are, however, risky practice techniques. So for instance, too much of the same thing during practice can lead to boredom and therefore dissatisfaction with the sport. That can also then reduce our intrinsic motivation, which we also know is very important, and I talk about that in a separate video. So it's up to sports psychologists and coaches to look at ways to overcome these slumps or the risk of boredom and dissatisfaction during practice. So it takes a long time to master a new skill. Professional athletes will know this firsthand. So at first, you'll likely struggle as you learn the new skill. However, you will begin to improve, and improvement usually at the very start of someone's career is very rapid. So this is illustrated by the learning curve or the learning curve theory, as you can see illustrated here. So the improvement is rapid at the beginning of learning a new skill. However, after a number of trials, improvement is often minimal and tapers off or plateaus, as you can see here. So once you become skilled in the task, all right, often our performance will increase, but it will be very, very, very gradual. So this is known as the learning curve. So we can see here on the x-axis, we've got the number of trials or attempts at learning, and then we've obviously got the performance measure. So we can see that we start slow at the beginning. We then have a very steep acceleration into our skill or our improvement. But then once we've mastered it, we tend to plateau and the improvement is very, very gradual. That's the learning curve theory. Also illustrated here. So the 3 phases of the learning curve theory are slow beginning, steep acceleration, we then get very proficient or masterful at our particular skill, and then we plateau. So it's during the steep acceleration phase that we see rapid procedural learning terminating in proficiency, so getting very, very masterful at that respective skill or sport. So an important point to remember here is that the relationship between learning and performance is not straightforward. So learning as an internal process, so it's part of the psycho of the biopsychosocial model, which we all know as well. So performance is a behavior, and we know that to be any observable action. So what we're saying is that it's not the same thing. Learning and performance are not the same thing. So learning and knowing a skill would not always mean you will be able to perform it. So even after a new skill is learned, it may take quite some time before your performance improves. So it may not be as rapid as I showed you before. It may take longer than that. It depends on the complexity of the task. It depends on each individual skill set. It depends on a lot of variables. And in some cases, it may be physically impossible to improve performance because not everyone is built to be a professional athlete or a professional musician because they don't have the other factors required or necessary to do it. So I hope you found this video useful. As always, if you've got any questions, let me know. Otherwise, happy revising.